Hey, what's up guys? It's your boy Wrench. Today we're talking about the meta shifting balance patch we got on Wednesday. We haven't had a balance patch nearly as big as this one in such a long time, so it's kind of a big event. We also had the back to school patch on the same day, which introduced Baby Mako, the new best skin in the game and my new main skin. Shout out Baby Mako. Basically, this video we're going to be looking at each change made in this patch. I'm going to be giving all my thoughts on them, and then we're also going to be talking about what would have been nice to see in this patch. Because there are some things that I think are missing. No balance patch is perfect, even though TWK is a god at game balancing. So we're going to be going over all of this now. Eventually, I'm going to be making a tier list of all the weapons and legends in this patch once we've had some time to let this patch settle and marinate a little bit, because it's kind of hard to correctly tell what the strongest legends are immediately after the patch drops. Especially one that's as big as this one. So stay tuned for that as I continue my journey of being a YouTuber who needs to upload more often, because I will be uploading more often. So Gauntlets no longer have the 3-piece Nair True combos. Instead, they're now a 2 to 4 dodge window, depending on the combo. Now you need to read out of neutral air to continue extension of strings. As a power shift to neutral air, damage has been increased from 8 to 11, which I'm honestly fine with. The overall reward is now similar to a Qatar's Nair, more than anything. Gauntlet's side air, reduced force, and variable force is definitely going to be noticed. It's such a strong move for being so fast with its previous high force and utility off stage to recover or take stocks extremely early. It's good to see it be toned down finally. And then Gauntlet's recovery, decrease stun by 3 to make recovery to Nair less tight of a string and decrease overall damage output from Gauntlets. I honestly appreciate that. It's pretty nice. Kind of brings it more in line with Qatar's, especially after Qatar's, as you're going to see, they get their overall damage build nerfed in this patch too. So Greatsword reduced variable force by 2 to 3 per finisher on specifically the finishers out of bridges. So the gravity cancel finishers are not going to be touched, but all the other ones, slightly reduced force. All that's going to mean is some situations where you would have KO'd, now your opponent is going to be living. It's going to be a little bit more common where that happens, but it's worth it in the end because of the sidelight change in these notes. Now sidelight, bridge, and light no longer drops if you hit sidelight out of a dash. Before, it would drop the follow-up every single time without fail. There's nothing you could do except not go for that bridge. Now, you can go for it every time. It's so reliable. It makes all the other bridges out of sidelight as well really good. Like sidelight bridge downlight and sidelight bridge endlight are both insane. Especially endlight being able to take people up in the air through that, or being able to just set up a really strong horizontal dodge punish that way. They're honestly good changes for Greatsword all around. The finishers definitely needed to be brought back a little bit, I think, and that sidelight fix is completely necessary. Such a massive deal. The weapon is going to be so much more fluid to play now, and we're going to be touching on this later in the section at the end of the video, but there is one thing with Greatsword that I wish they also fixed. While they fixed that sidelight bridge, there's a couple more bridges that are completely useless on Greatsword for a similar reason. Qatar's side air is getting a reduced hitbox, very slightly decreased variable force, like barely at all. And then they also added a hard to notice amount of recover time, literally like 1 frame of recover time, not gonna affect anything. I think the Sarah nerfs are justified though. The move stuck out a lot in the weapon, and it was way too easy for the reward after the quote-unquote rework of the move, if you could call it that, a while ago, when they changed the hitboxing of the move and got rid of the spike hitbox. Sidelight and aerial down air decreased damage is going to be noticeable when you're building damage through Qatar loops and just in general, and also like sidelight combos. If you're just hitting sidelight combos and resetting like the Stingray playstyle, that is going to rack up less damage overall. So that's just something you have to watch out for. Like I mentioned during Gauntlets, just overall in these weapons you're having less damage build, or less easy damage build. Sidelight is losing some of the dash impulse, or the extra momentum you get using it out of a dash, which that's honestly expected. But I'm pleasantly surprised that they didn't completely remove it. They could have just completely gutted the weapon and just removed sidelight dash impulse completely, which we've had Qatars like that before, where they don't have any momentum out of sidelight, and they're really difficult to get in on your opponent with. So I think it's nice that they kept in some of the momentum while still finding a middle ground. So sidelight is still a great move. The momentum is noticeable. It's something you're going to have to get used to, but once you do, it's about the same. It plays similarly enough. Endlight recovery though, now finally no longer fast fallable. If you watch any of my videos or any of my streams, you know how happy that change makes me, dude. How many Endlight recoveries I've missed because of just game balance being wrong in my life, dude, is too many to count. So now you can't fast fall Endlight recovery. In 9 decks, Endlight downlight should be 1 dodge window, but they also made it so Endlight downlight is harder to actually get because of the new setup angle. But Endlight recovery not being fast fallable is so huge, it literally doesn't even matter to me. I'm just happy to have it back. The juggling is so nice, catching landings is so nice, catching spot dodges is so nice. Qatars just feel good again. And even just reading out of Endlight, because of that extra stun and the setup angle, just like reading with GCs out of Endlight is even better indirectly. So that's super nice. Yeah, overall, I'm happy with the Qatar's changes. I'm glad with the route that they went with them. They could have done a lot worse things to them. And they're in a pretty fun state to play right now. Spear Cider's nerf on recover time from the last balance patch has been reverted from 3 fixed to 1 fixed. That's something Spear mains have been vocal about since that initial balance patch hit, and I'm pretty okay with it too. I'm not one of the people who think Spear is underpowered. I think it's a pretty strong weapon, and I think too big of buffs could have easily made the weapon too oppressive. So this change right here is a pretty great middle ground to make both sides of the argument satisfied here. And not make it too overpowered while still giving them something that they wanted. Sword got nerfs on its neutral options like neutral air and down air, which causes the 3-piece combos to no longer be useful, as they're only true combos and 180 damage, and downlight recovery kills earlier than that, so there's no point in going for them anymore other than style points, but you could throw games going for that, so not really worth. Sword also saw a small fix for exhausted recovery, which isn't really important as a sword player, but in general it's just good to keep recovery and exhausted recovery consistent with one another. Exhausted recovery used to do 1 more damage than normal recovery for whatever unexplainable reason, so that's cool. I wish though we would have seen an animation fix on downlight, because that's something that should have been added when the hitbox was nerfed initially. It's kind of annoying, like it's not a massive deal, it's just more mildly frustrating than anything. We can let it slide, but it should get added within the next couple patches. There's honestly no reason why it shouldn't have just been added when they changed the hitbox of the move. So finally, for the last of the weapon changes, unarmed Endlight time to hit has been increased by 1, and that's just to prevent Endlight wake-ups beating out weapon strings. So now the unarmed move will always clash, and because of programmed in priority that weapons have over unarmed, the weapon will always win that interaction, so it further solidifies unarmed's role as a disadvantaged state. It's how it should be. No more unarmed BS just happening. Of course it's still gonna happen, but less common now at least. Now the Nsig changes, I'm gonna go through a bit faster because there's kind of less to talk about for them, and then we'll go over all the things I'm hoping to see in the next balance patch and my closing thoughts for the video, and we'll be out of here. Hattori Sword side Nsig had a huge change of stun and recover time on hit in an attempt to fix drops of the move, where the opponent's able to wake up and punish. I've never seen that, but apparently it was a thing. Now it should function properly every time, and it might have even been a buff for the move in 2v2 because of the extra stun. Koji bow down Nsig, that Nsig is the bane of my existence, reduced horizontal threat coverage, so basically the hitbox extends out horizontally less far. It's pretty nice considering that Nsig is such a threat in red and so easy to react with, but I really don't think that the nerf in this patch addresses the main issue of the Nsig, and that's just that it's so free to just react and throw it out, especially if you're like just floating and then you do a GC down Nsig or something like that, or you whiff like a bow downlight and do a jump GC down Nsig. It still feels as spammable and as easy to use on reaction as it did before, so A for effort, but hopefully next balance patch we get to see some to kind of make Koji more well-rounded in his kit instead of just bow down Nsig. Core neutral hammer, increased minimum charge time, decreased total recover time to prevent stomp and Nsig being true. There's a few more cases of this in this patch, which can mean BMGs trying to lock Nsig true combos behind a dexterity threshold like 9 dex in order to make them stat more useful, which is an interesting concept for sure. I hope they do more like this in the future. The couple instances we see in this balance patch definitely point towards that. Mako Greatsword down Sig got massively nerfed, decreased variable force by 5, slightly increased time to hit, increased minimum charge time, and slightly decreased damage. The Sig is still insanely good though, which is crazy to think about because this is the second or third big nerf it's gotten now. It's not like Kojibo down Sig where you don't feel the nerf, but the Sig design itself is extremely strong, so it'll probably always be a high tier signature no matter what. Mordex Gauntlets down Sig got a small nerf to recovery on miss from 19 to 22. A few more frames of it being punishable sounds helpful, but I feel like he needed more nerfs to the actual on-hit properties of the move, like force or V-force on top of this. Mordex is literally like one of the strongest legends of the game, one of the best Sig kits ever to grace Brawlhalla. I think he could deal with a little bit more of a nerf than that. Onyx Gauntlets down Sig increased recovery on miss from 25 to 28, slightly decreased hitboxing horizontally, which you can totally see in training mode if you look at hitboxes. It doesn't even reach the end of the animation anymore, which is how it should be for a move with the frame data that is this godly. A similar deal with her cannon side Sig with increased recovery time and reduced hitboxing, although the hitboxing on the Sig is still insane. If you look at it in training mode, I'll show it on screen as well. Gauntlets down Sig definitely got the short end of the stick here between those two Sigs. This is great to see though, because although Onyx wasn't very common in this last meta, she was one of the best legends in the entire game ever at the time, and she was so oppressive, and she still remains as a high tier after these changes. That just speaks to how good Onyx was before this patch. Petra Gauntlets Nsig increased recover time from 22 to 24. Not the change I was hoping for with the Sig, but it helps a little bit. I still think the move is way too strong with it being so fast with that generous hitboxing, but this is a step in the right direction. Bust TWK for this because it was so annoying queuing into an army of Rayman in 2v2. By the way, who would have thought Rayman would have been such a broken legend after all this time since release? Rayman X side Sig has an added 3 frames of recover time. 3 might honestly not be enough for the amount of movement, but before it was completely unpunishable. I'm hoping now it's at least less obnoxious to play against, but I do not have my hopes that high. Rayman X down Sig increased minimum charge time, increased recover time for aerial and grounded version of the move, massively decreased force and V-force, but increased damage, which is questionable. I'm not sure. That Sig was broken no matter what. Even with those nerfs, you should have just left the nerfs without the damage buff, because it is on axe. Like, you are damage building like crazy anyway. And the on-stage version is really free to hit with that. You get like splash damage with a hitbox, like a bow down air on the ground or something like that. Rayman Gauntlets Nsig and side Sig also got a buff, increased damage and force of the tap version, so no charge at all. It's an interesting decision, but a welcome one. It's just really weird to not hard nerf Rayman when his kit is the way that it is. It kind of seems like a power shift almost, like an undeserving power shift. I don't know. It's really weird. I am questioning this one. Sentinel became one of, if not the strongest Qatar's legend in the game last balance patch, with huge buffs to his Sigs out of seemingly nowhere. The Nsig buff is still there, and Nsig is left untouched in this patch, which is an issue in my opinion. That Sig hits behind due to deceptive hitboxing, has amazing frame data, kills at deep orange. The Sigs nerfed were problematic too, but Nsig was in a whole different arena from those ones. The changes we did get were Qatar's down Sig decreased damage from a range of 28 to 24 to 22, and if I'm reading this correctly, the force was made more consistently high. I don't get why this change is made. It's not a good one. That Sig needed more recovery or cooldown, at least. Sentinel Hammer Nsig added 4 frames of recover time, which is great because that Sig is just super easy to spam mindlessly and get a kill, especially on a weapon like Hammer where you already have plenty of kill options. I would have personally reduced the hitbox as well, or added a small amount of extra minimum charge time, but the recover time itself could be enough. Sentinel Hammer down Sig decreased recover time by 5 frames. I like this change, kind of. I've always thought Sentinel Hammer down Sig was one of the worst Sigs in the game, and that we needed to shift power from his stronger Sigs into that one. But I'm not sure if this is the way I would have done it. Hammer down Sig's issue is that it's incredibly telegraphed. The recovery time decrease could make it better as a frame trap or a ledge trap move, but that's being generous. And I don't think the nerfs to the other Sigs in this patch are enough to warrant the power shift as it is right now. It is Sentinel's worst Sig by far, but the rest of them are all still very strong, so to balance this way is just making Sentinel's kit overall stronger than before without really rounding him out as much as he needs. Taros Hammer Nsig slightly increased minimum charge time. That's probably to make it no longer true. As I said before, they're trying to restrict Sig true combos to 9 Dex legends. And increased damage from 18 to 24, probably as an incentive to go for it just normally and not out of a stomp like they're used to. Taros Hammer Side Sig, reduced hitboxing near the rear of the attack. You can definitely see it if you look in training mode. It no longer hits behind at all. Should hopefully stop some of the really weird hits that are caused by bubble hurt boxes and also just Brawlhalla. And then Axe Down Sig finally increased recover time from 24 to 26. My issue with this move wasn't really struggling to punish it. It's just more that it's a massive circle hitbox with a ton of force. It's like a force field, essentially. I never struggled to punish this, but maybe it can be helpful. I guess we'll take it. Any nerfs to Taros, honestly, we'll take. Thatch Blasters Nsig increased minimum charge time from 9 to 12 to remove Downlight Nsig True on Blasters. Thatch mains are really upset with this one, you already know, and understandably so. It's very obvious VMG is trying to restrict those true combos with Sigs to 9 decks, so stay salty, Thatch mains. I'm kidding, but it makes sense. Maybe they want to do a little power shift the Rooney for our boy Thatch, though. If they're literally gonna do it for Rayman, but not Thatch. A Val Sword Nsig, thank God, dude. Increased recover time on miss from 24 to 26, decreased horizontal hitboxing, but you only notice the decreased horizontal hitboxing in the final hitbox of the move. It's kind of sad. Like, the rest of the move looks literally exactly the same as it did before. I've heard some Val mains already say Nsig feels exactly the same. That's probably why they probably should have made it so it can't hit grounded. It just opens up so much more room for counterplay around that signature. It makes the move so much more less free. You actually have to earn your hit instead of just being able to press it basically whenever. And for how long the Sig has been dominating tourneys lately, it's a shame we didn't see more drastic changes to it. A Volkov Scythe Side Sig, decreased stun of the final hit for both versions from 31 to 25, decreased V-force of the active input version by 2. I think it's a good change. The Sig was and still is incredibly strong. They're opting to nerf the reward of the Sig instead of the frame data / hitboxing, which I think are the main reason for it being so useful, is that it's just applicable anywhere, and you have active input, so you can literally choose the direction as well. Active input Sigs are pretty broken in their own right just by design. It could be okay though, we'll just kind of have to see. There are other Volkov Sigs I wish that had gotten nerfed as well though, like Sandstorm's Volkov showing definitely should have got some more Sigs nerfed than that, for sure, dude. Wait a minute, there were no blasters changes in this entire patch! What gives, BMG? Well, really though, what I and some other pros have been thinking is that blasters are going to become relevant in the meta again as soon as the extremely strong weapons are nerfed, without directly buffing blasters. Now that we've all seen the nerfs, I think blasters are going to have a much greater chance in this meta, especially due to changes in weapons damage build like Qatar's. Blasters will suffer just that much less in that difficult matchup now, but we'll have to wait longer to see for sure. I think blasters are at minimum usable this patch competitively compared to last patch, so that's nice. You gotta love blasters. All right, we're at the last part of the video. I'm gonna run through these really quickly. What could have made this balance patch better? I seriously could go on forever with this list, but here's a short list because this video is getting pretty long at this point, and I just want to make sure we don't hit 20 minutes on this. Nerf on Volkov Axe Side Sig default form. It's way too quick with such a good hitbox, even for the low amount of force. Either reduce hitboxing or increase the time to hit, because I don't think a Sig like this belongs on Axe. And it has active input. That's just too many different properties at once for that move, dude. Fix other Greatsword drops, like on Enlight Bridge Downlight Finisher, Enlight being like your middle bridge. So Downlight Finisher drops more often than it actually sets up, so you're forced to avoid using this bridge. Like, I literally never go for this in games because it's more likely that you're going to drop it than you're going to get it, and there's just better options to go for that are more reliable and will actually consistently set up every time. The sidelight fix was an outstanding start, but fixing the rest of the drops will make Greatsword so much more fluid to play. Better power shifting on Sentinel, especially Hammer Down Sig. Nerfing Qatar's Nsig a massive amount is something that needs to happen. That Sig is one of the best Qatar Sigs in the entire game, dude, without a doubt, without a shred of doubt in my mind. That thing is ridiculous. So power shift Sentinel better. He's way too well-rounded now, now that his down Sig is not complete hot garbage anymore. At least I think he's been needing that Nsig nerf for a little bit now. Nerf Mordex Gauntlets down Sig variable force or the travel distance and the animation during the grab. You can be grabbed center stage in like orange and you'll die because the travel distance of the signature, it just goes so far no matter what, especially on maps like Brawlhaven. But it doesn't even need to be a small map for you to get carried off the stage from center stage. I think that move is really dumb. Fix Mako Greatsword side sig drop. Just take a look at this on screen and that's all you need to know. And then finally, make Val Sword and Nsig not hit grounded. I think those are the changes that we need in order to have a perfect Brawlhalla. Not really perfect, but that's a great start. But yeah, some of those things should have been in this balance patch for sure. It's a shame that we didn't get the perfect balance patch, but this one is a great beginning. It's a great start, as we say every single balance patch. If you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. I'm gonna have some guide videos coming out soon, more gameplay videos coming out as well. I'm playing a lot of Mako lately, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this type of video with the scripted commentary instead of just the off the dome commentary. Peace out, take it easy, I love you, and drink some water.